Hello, Dr. John.
Good morning. Not doctor, not doctor.
It's a pleasure to see you again here.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
It's you are agree if present again your biography,
So where am I based? Did you say?
Dr.
Yeah, I'm
Braulio.
UK.
Yeah, let me introduce to our next speaker. So for today, we had the pleasure to hear from John Barnes, founder and CEO of the Entangled Positions. John is a CEO, mostly most influential CEO of 2025 for UK, and a trained recruiter since 2004, who was working in quantum science 2014. He's founding Entangled Position, and to deliver ethical excellence to the quantum ecosystems. He has a speaker, community building, special advisor for workforce and talent at the Quantum Strategy Institute, and was formerly the founding president of One Quantum UK and Europe. He advises multiple governments and super-governmental organizations, including the UK and UN. His day-to-day work is connecting talent people with roles in quantum technologies, having had tens of thousands of conversations regarding people, careers, and hiring needs, and giving a deep-sitting and unique view, offering stability in a consistent uncertain sector. So the main topic for today for John is how to create a quantum workforce. Thank you, John, for having to be all with us. So you can proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Braulio. Absolute pleasure. And good morning and welcome to everyone today here for Qubit's Quantum Qiskit Full Fest 2025, where we're celebrating 100 years of quantum mechanics with IBM Quantum. And as mentioned, we're going to be speaking about creating a quantum workforce. So, as you can imagine, that's quite a big topic. So we're going to try and start with this being, a high level talk and touching as many areas as possible. And there are so many different layers to this, so many different silos to this. So please do ask as many questions as possible in the chat. That way I can make it as relatable and consequently beneficial for the audience as possible. And from my talk on Sunday, which was transitioning from academia to industry, we managed to get to all of the questions and still finish exactly on time. So I'm going to try and take the same approach and try and get to everything. We didn't use slides last time, and that really helped. So I'm going to ditch the slides that I'd prepared for this talk and go freestyle. And that way, hopefully, I can make it more tailored to you, the audience, and maybe load a bit more pressure on my shoulders. But I like that. So obviously, we're talking about a scientific subject. We're talking about workforce. So the obvious place to start is with a history lesson. So I want to sort of rewind a little bit to 2014, which was when I first engaged with the quantum ecosystem and started working in the sector. And I think for most people, in quantum, there's an interesting story of, what drove them to get into quantum, what inspired them. And from my side, unfortunately, I didn't find quantum. Quantum found me. So back in 2014, someone I'd worked with previously, who's a senior manager in the software development role at an executive level, he phoned me up and he said, "John, I'm building a photonic quantum computer and all of the subsystems. Can you help me find the team?" To which I answered yes, before I knew what I was getting myself into and all the weird and wonderful things that I would learn over the next decade and more. And over the years, what I saw was there's been such amazing changes. So in 2014, there was, apart from our sponsors IBM and a couple of other noteworthy entities, there wasn't really an industry in quantum. there are a few university spin-outs, some interesting science projects, and not a lot else. So to be a commercial person working in that space had its challenges, let's say, but there were organizations working with this. So you had, for example, laser manufacturers, you had cryogenics companies, you had people building the foundation for the software and algorithms that were to come, and kind of the supply chain, if you like, related to that. So as we skim forward over the years, we then see more companies establish themselves and maturing, and we see companies actually doing quantum things, building quantum things, and this kind of took a path over the next sort of 5 years or so to develop. So companies were then starting to get a little bit more mature, and then we had the sort of pandemic, and lots of things changed at that time. The funding landscape had matured, the technical landscape had matured, and the way that people communicated was very, very different. And at this stage, actually, there was a real step change in the quantum ecosystem and how it was perceived internally and externally. And this was really the trigger to create Entangled Positions as an overtly quantum-focused organization. So although the work I was doing didn't change, it reflected this broader environment that I was working in. So rather than Profector Associates and its generic sounding name, Entangled Positions, which tells you, if you know, you know, and it tells you that it's overtly quantum, started giving talks, started being more involved, really helping to build and create the ecosystem that we see today. The backstory to that was that the workforce was changing dramatically during those periods. So I think with an audience, with a mixed audience, you know, we have a number of different people here. So the talk today is really going to focus a lot on, you know, if you're a business person, workforce, if you're an HR talent, if you're a physicist, messy biological systems, or as I know them, simply people. So as I say, the workforce itself in quantum has changed over the years. So when I first joined, it was very much heavy experimental type subjects or algorithm developers. You know, very much pure academics, and it felt like I was the only person without a PhD in the ecosystem. And not only didn't I have a PhD, I hadn't actually been to university. My training was 10 years of sort of technology recruitment and a keen sense of curiosity. So this really emphasized that there was the academic piece of the puzzle, very little in the commercial arena, and it's the commercial arena that's grown significantly in that time. So we sort of see a number of different or we see things split into a number of different areas, from quantum hardware and quantum software, and we work with quantum peopleware. But as businesses and organizations are growing up, there's lots more layers that we're looking at that are evolving. So I think before I continue, I think I saw some questions coming up. So it's just asking for questions. So yeah, please do put your questions in the chat. So when we talk about businesses, there's organizations at different stages. So you have the quantum vendors, people making a quantum thing to perform a task. You have people. You have businesses that are just that aren't really aware of quantum. You have businesses that are embarking on their quantum readiness journey. You have some that are at quantum adoption stage, and some that are looking to provide quantum excellence. And these are important backdrops to remember. So within one of the things to bear in mind, and you, depending on where you sit in the ecosystem, you may have a different vantage point on this, but we see that there's when you look at quantum businesses, there's a lack of commercial business understanding compared to their non-quantum counterparts. And in non-quantum businesses, there's a lack of quantum experience, and this road in between is a pathway that's not trodden as much as I think we need to flourish. And I think being able to work in that space is really important. And that translation piece is really interesting. And this speaks to the workforce within quantum, because you have a lot of people, the majority of people in quantum, that they have a thin layer of understanding, but very, very deep. They know a lot about a certain topic, but don't necessarily know as much when it comes to the breadth. My role is very much about the breadth and rather than the depth. And I think this is an area that joining those dots up will really help. And without the depth of knowledge, there is no quantum research. There are no quantum applications. There's nothing to base this upon. So we need to still be producing more and more excellent academics, excellent technical people with research backgrounds. That's really important. But actually, then joining those dots up and being able to link those research goals, making turning the research into commercial products and services, being able to translate these goals to government, being able to translate them to businesses, to the general public, to school children, to basically all of the potential stakeholders and future stakeholders. So with regards to that, there's different timelines for these things as well, and we need to bear in mind that there's a lot of excitement attached to quantum. And this is good. We need to really fan these flames and create a high level of excitement, not just for those in the quantum bubble, but also from those outside of the quantum bubble. And I remember many years ago, I placed someone from an atom trapping background into a role, and we had a conversation where she told me that one of the interesting things with quantum is quantum's got a really good reputation. The word quantum excites people, but a lot of what she was doing could actually be described as nuclear. And yet, if you say the word nuclear, it can often create a lot of fear. And I think just that terminology and the difference of reception is really important. So these things that may not be clear when you're in a research or academic setting in the wider world can be really important. So I think nurturing that level of excitement is something that we've done well and we need to continue to do well. But we need to avoid that feeding into hype, unrealistic promises, people being let down, people buying products and services and spending money that isn't right for them. So for those of you that are in a commercial business, for example, that are looking at your quantum readiness strategy, it's important that you take a responsible approach to this. So, it's all well and good if you're, for example, the CTO and you think, well, I want to go and spend X million on this quantum product because I'm excited by it. Well, that's fine, and we like that, but you need to get it right, because if you spend that money and you don't get the return expected on it, the next time you ask for a budget for quantum, your CEO, your CFO is going to tell you no, and it will be a long time before you can revisit it. So you need to develop your strategy in the right way. And this is kind of the starting point for building a quantum workforce in a company. So it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to spend a lot of money to set the scene with this. So a really good way to start is with a small volunteer group. Even just one person who has an interest in quantum, to maybe take a couple of hours off once a month to have a look at what's happening in the market, get up to speed with things, take an interest, and then you'll find other interested people will join that group. And very quickly, you may have a group of several people that come together a couple of hours a month just to speak about what's happening and start to formulate an idea of what your company could use for quantum, what interests they may have, what may work for them, and what the time horizon may look like for that. So this creates a a level of excitement within the organization. You start to develop an understanding of use cases. You start to develop what may be possible, and you've not funded it other than a couple of hours work per month. You know, if you like, you may want to get them some pizzas or something like that, some food to make it a nice environment. But essentially, there's no big funding required. And as you start developing this understanding of what quantum might do for you, you can then go to certain groups that maybe offer free access to quantum computing. So in the UK, for example, there's the National Quantum Computing Centre that enables organisations to use various hardware modalities, various qubit modalities, various software packages, middleware, different algorithms, both quantum inspired, simulation, to work out what a responsible pathway to innovation is. There are a number of the vendors that offer free access. So IBM, for example, offers free access to Qiskit for trialing things. So working on that basis, you can get a long way without actually spending any money, and your company will thank you for that, because when you are ready to spend money, you've done a lot of preparatory work. You're able to identify potential use cases, potential solutions providers, and actually when it does come to signing off some checks and buying some quantum products, the chances of you succeeding or having value from it is much higher. And that's something I think that really we should encourage, that responsible innovation and fighting against sort of hype and the things that damage us all. So I think that's important, that responsible innovation piece, to counter against the hype slightly. So there was good timing there. I was just about to ask for any questions, and I saw one pop in the chat. So the question here is, having worked closely with government, academia, and industry, how can these sectors align more effectively to create a unified quantum ecosystem? And there's another part to this question, but I want to take that piece first of all, because it's really important, actually. I think how these different entities with different interests align is really important, and it speaks to the kind of the biggest or the most important challenge in quantum, I think, is integration. There's so many pieces that need to integrate, and that could be software to hardware, physics to biology and chemistry, nation to nation, and government, academia, and industry. So it's about aligning goals. So I think for most, and we also touch on the next question, is what are the key ingredients for a region to successfully develop its own quantum innovation sector? And I think this is important, because these things, they tend to be so far they tend to have been led by government. So you need the government to provide the backdrop or the situation for others to flourish. So if you have government that provides the platform for that responsible innovation, that allows industry to be able to look at utilizing quantum computing at the right time. And alongside that, academia is kind of the powerhouse that really provides the research background for it. But it should be understood they have different goals. So in research, traditionally, you're looking to add to the sum of human knowledge. But in quantum, this is tweaked slightly, because actually you're providing the talent pool for quantum development. So it's important you've got these structures together. As your ecosystem grows, so the funding from government will take you so far, but it will never be enough to take you all of the way. It's the seed. It's basically the seed investment to start, maybe a little bit more than seed, but it's the catalyst to begin things. Industry is what needs to be paying for things when there's a value chain, when there's a value proposition there. But academia can be providing the people to realize that value. And I think this is important, that the people coming from academia, how ready they are to enter into the workforce is really important. And the key thing is getting these goals aligned is for people to talk, people to communicate, understand what what the other sector can and can't do, what their interests and drivers are, and align these goals and work out where there's gaps and whose responsibility it is to develop further in this instance. Because if each of these three entities gets their piece right, and so do the others, they're mutually beneficial. So I think that comes from conversations and talking to people. So this is these things that it comes down to integration and speaking and understanding, and these things are easier said than done. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting otherwise. And the last part of the question is about how important are international collaborations in workforce, especially in decentralized sectors like quantum. It's the core function, basically. Quantum is global. I spent many years on talks, and I'd be sitting next to people on a workforce panel who didn't come from a workforce background, and they would be constantly saying how the biggest challenge is a talent shortage. There's not enough talented people, and I was the only one actually working in recruitment or working in the workforce space, and I never used that phrase. I spoke about a skills gap, because a talent shortage was never the biggest problem. It's always nice to have more talent, but it wasn't the biggest challenge. It's actually harnessing the talent that's out there. So this could be making sure that you're able to engage a global workforce. There's so many people that are energetic, enthusiastic, problem solvers, and most importantly, extremely talented around the world. And it's important that we're working out the best ways to get the brightest minds working together, collaborating on really hard challenges for the greater good. And I think this is something that there's focus on it, but there's still challenges that we need to overcome. And getting this right is probably a much bigger thing than any perceived talent shortage. And I think this is something that does come into play. And alongside that as well, actually, when it comes to nations working together or regions working together, this is also really important, because not only do you pull the intellectual capital here, you also pull the use cases. So different countries will have different industries that require different technologies to solve different problems. So this is good both for the user of the technology, but also the maker of the technology, to be able to work on interesting problems that may find a really good home for their technology they never envisaged. And getting this integration is kind of the most important thing, and it spans across everything we do. So yeah, I think that for me is the biggest piece, is that collaboration. And we hear the word collaboration from a lot of quantum vendors, because to a large extent we're pre-competition, and working together for the greater good is beneficial. So I think that's really, really important. And the next question actually is in two parts, and the one part of it actually takes me on nicely onto the next part of the talk. So the first one is, from my experience, what are the biggest challenges today in building a sustainable global quantum workforce? And I touch onto this later in the talk, so I might just park that one for now, if I may, and I will cover that at a later part of the talk. But the other is, how do I see the balance between technical expertise and transferable skills evolving in the next 5 years? And actually, this takes me perfectly into the next part of the talk, which is the current and future landscape. So quantum is developing rapidly as the sort of the science behind it, but even more rapid is the movement towards a product and service mindset. So for many years, people were working on for 100 years, basically, people have been working on the challenges or the understanding of quantum. You can go right the way back to your Niels Bohr and Einstein arguments and so on. More recently, there's more applied work that's been happening, but this product and service mindset is really interesting, and it's kind of a key focus, because without revenue being generated from customers, quantum technologies turn into an interesting science project. It needs finance, it needs customers to be able to sustain itself in the long term. So it is still heavily research based, but other roles are growing from at a quicker rate. So the starting point is smaller than the number of research roles, but it is growing more quickly in terms of year on year growth. There's a huge variety of roles for those who don't know Chris Bishop and are interested in the mindset around that. I would look at Chris Bishop's book, How to Succeed at Jobs That Don't Yet Exist, because there's a lot of people working today that will be exceptional at jobs that do not exist in today. And this way of evolving is really, really important. And if we look at some of so quantum companies are needing all of the things that grown-up businesses have, and some other roles that maybe aren't in other grown-up businesses. So, we're looking at HR, marketing and communications, finance experts, web development, compliance and governance, all the legal aspects, all of these things that happen in every other industry. Quantum needs them. And they need to be applied to quantum. And these skills often come from outside of quantum, but to transfer them into quantum, you also need some quantum understanding as well. And this is kind of the key challenge. And one of the things that I think quantum needs to improve on to overcome some of the challenges around workforce and skills development is transferring existing skills into quantum. So to give you a couple of examples, so when we work with atom trappers or ion trappers or the laser engineering that sort of bespoke to quantum, if you like, so people look for someone with ion trapping experience to come in and work on their ion trapping team, and that's great. But often there's people with really good laser engineering skills that can actually add more to a team of ion trappers than another ion trapper, because if you bring someone in with a broad range of skills on the optical table, they're going to be able to look at the big picture and identify certain things. Maybe there's a venting problem that can be solved. Maybe there's something with the breadboard. Maybe there's some positioning issues. But actually they can, they might be able to put some automation in play. But they see things with different eyes, and they're actually able to add to the team sometimes more than another specialist can do. And so the team can learn from them, and they can learn from the team. You also look at software developers or machine learning engineers. So their skills aren't directly quantum related, but they can transfer those skills into quantum. And my friend Rupesh Srivastava was challenged once, saying you can't just train software devs to be quantum software devs. So he took the challenge. He bought some pizzas, worked with some software devs, and in one afternoon he had some software devs doing some quantum software. So it's a lot more of an involved process to be commercially viable, but it shows it's possible. And I think these things, there's a lot quantum can learn from other tech industries, and a lot tech industries can learn from quantum. And a really big piece, as quantum businesses will develop into or sell their products and services to non-quantum businesses, is tech agnostic roles. So if you've got an implementation where your quantum computing company is delivering a computer to a bank, for example, you're going to need tech agnostic project managers, program managers, solutions architects, enterprise architects, technical architects, business analysts. And they're going to need to provide the best of breed solution, not necessarily the tools that they most want to work with. And these are going to be really important as the market develops. So I think that piece of transitioning skills and bringing non-quantum people into the quantum bubble is really, really important. And quantum's got a lot to learn in how to do that effectively. But the appetite is there. And the more that pathway is trodden, the more that people will be able to do so. And I think this is something that can that does need to help. Does need to be progressed. And I think actually, if you're not in quantum and you want to be in quantum, I think get involved, get as much understanding and knowledge as possible, and work out where your role can be. So I think I'm just going to jump back into the questions here. So that was the last one. So the next question is, which skills or learning paths are most valuable today for people who want to prepare for quantum careers that don't yet exist? So nice sort of tag on there. So I like that. And should universities adapt their curriculum and programs to prepare students for the quantum economy? So I think in answer to the first point, I would say the starting point should always be is work out what's important to you. So what are your goals? What are your aspirations? What do you want to achieve? Where's your passion? Where does your passion lie? And you can learn the skills. So there's so many different pathways in quantum. There's no right answer to that. So and sometimes they can be very high-minded, holistic goals. I want to work on environmental challenges. So you can fit in a number of different ways, and it may be you've got really strong communication skills that you're able to advocate for a topic. So that might be your role. You're the person who goes out and communicates and convinces and cajoles people into acting in a more sustainable, environmentally sustainable way. Or it may be the person that you're working on some sort of technology that works on carbon capture, for example. So working out what you want to do and what you can bring is important. You can learn the skills to make that happen, or at least to work towards that direction. So that would always be my first point of call. And I think in terms of what universities can do, I think with it, so the goal of researchers isn't traditionally to find a job afterwards. It's traditionally to add to the sum of human knowledge. So I don't want to sort of lecture universities on changing that goal, because I think that's important. But I think in terms of if you're looking at it to provide the next generation of workforce, I think actually sometimes the transition from academia to industry piece is something that could be added to. And I don't know whether academia is necessarily the best deliverer of that, because it's not what they do, and they've got other skills that are fantastic. So I'm actually able to personally and with people I know offer some services around that, and maybe it's for the non-universities to be the conduit to add a little bit of polish and sheen, so that people are able to enter the workforce and hit their stride a little bit more quickly. So and this comes back to that integration piece. Nobody's going to do everything. We have to all work together and try and make a more cohesive whole than we currently have. So and actually this is kind of taken me about halfway through my next topic, which was about the challenges of the past, present, and future. So, and we've spoken about the kind of the skills gap and the talent, and aligning government and academia and industry. And I think there are more and more people that are coming into the ecosystem. So coming back to the question about succeeding the careers that don't yet exist, and giving some confidence to people that are looking to come into quantum, or us at academia looking for their next job. There are more and more good people that are learning excellent, valuable quantum skills, but the requirement for these people grows ever more quickly. So there's you can look at it and it seems like there's more and more people competing for these jobs, which is true, but the number of jobs grows exponentially quicker. So the gap between those who can do it and the requirement for them is stretching all the time. So that should give you confidence that working in quantum can be a really valuable, fulfilling career for you. And I think when we look to the future, we're in a stage now where over the coming year or two, there's a change coming in quantum companies. So and this is that we've seen the start of it, but I think a lot of it is not as visible, and it'll be a lot bigger piece over the next year or two. And that's that non-quantum businesses are getting more and more involved in hiring quantum people for the work that they're doing. And also the type of quantum businesses is going to change, or there'll be a new generation of quantum businesses that will start to present themselves over the next 2026 onwards. And these are businesses that will be working on large scale quantum development, but they won't be quantum companies. So they're companies that will be trying to solve a specific challenge. They see an important challenge that they want to solve, and quantum will be one of the technology stacks they use, along with a whole number of other advanced technologies that they'll be looking to align together. So, and this means that there's the potential for the skills gap to really increase. Now, I think there's a lot of companies that are talking about the challenge of hiring now that will look back on this time as a golden day when it was much easier to hire than it will be for a few years to come. So I think yeah, if you're looking to work in quantum, that should really give you hope and confidence that it's an excellent career step. If you're looking to hire into quantum, I would say look at how you're doing it. I'm happy to talk with you to talk you through that. But I think actually having an adaptable approach to hiring is going to be important if you want to secure the people you need, and being able to train, upskill, and transfer skills with good people. Your attributes are sort of instilled into you more heavily. Your skills can be trained, and if you're the company doing it, you can train those people. It may take a little bit of time, but if you're waiting for the ideal person, you may not get them, and that can be a lot more problematic than wait for the time to train someone. So before I go on to so I'm going to continue in terms of the sort of how to build teams, and it is that those transferable skills is probably the thing that I would reference most, and integrating those people into your team. You're going to have a wide purview of different skills and attributes, and how you bring those together to create a composite output is really going to determine the success or failure of what you're doing. And the nice thing is in a competitive market, if you hire someone and you train them in new skills, you develop their skills, you develop their career, your chances of retaining them go through the roof compared to someone who is only brought in to do one thing and stick to that. So actually don't always look at it as a challenge and something you overcome, but look at it as a way of retaining the best and brightest minds on the market. You have a real passion for working for you. This is something that that there's huge benefit to something that at first glance seems like a real challenge. So that in-house cross training is important, and it may be if you've been hiring those diverse skill sets, you've probably got someone that can train everyone else in this aspect. For example, say you've got the QML developer, say, and they can train the rest of the team on that. Then you've got an optimization engineer who can train the rest of the team on that, and then you've got the tensor network person or the Python developer. But you have people that have that speciality in a certain area to lead that. Everyone else can learn from them as much as possible, but you also build ownership and leadership skills with people because they're the go-to person for their thing, and that's a really healthy ecosystem where you create a flatter management structure where people own their part of the product or project rather than a very linear management structure, and it inspires people to strive to be better. So that retention piece is really important, and also actually as part of your attractions piece. The people often talk about how to attract good candidates, and they tend to fall into the more money is better trap. And of course, more money is better, but it's not the only thing. It's definitely not always the biggest thing either. And the biggest thing you can do when hiring is listen to people, ask them what they're passionate about, understand what their goals and motivation are, and try and be able to fit that into their role, into their job, into their day-to-day task. Because if you can do that, you're more likely to attract the person, but not just that, you retain the person. So all of that lovely knowledge they built up working for you stays in-house. They're passionate, driven to succeed at your organization. And you don't have to go and then in a short amount of time find someone else, start again, and build all of that over again, and your culture will be much, much stronger for that. So, thinking about these things is really important, not just getting them through the door, but keeping the best people with you and building something special together. And then that virtuous cycle shows to the people you're hiring in future coming into a great environment, and the process is repeated with your new team members as well. So and I think this speaks to the fact that the best talent is fantastic, is it's gold dust, but the best team is even better. If you can have the most talented group of individuals, but a team will almost always be overcome that. And this is kind of the challenge of overcoming your bias. The more that you speak to people and get involved and understand, the more you can overcome your own bias, which we all have. So I think the next question sort of tags on a little bit, which is what are some of the common misconceptions you encounter about careers in quantum technologies? And I think some of the big topics are, I mean, first of all, people think, oh, it's really complicated. I couldn't possibly get involved. It's too complicated. And you don't know till you try. As I mentioned, I never went to university. I've been involved in quantum for over 10 years now. So that education piece isn't necessarily a blocker. You may just need to be a little bit, follow a different path to the bachelor's, master's, PhD, postdoc, career professional route. I think some of the other misconceptions as well come from the academics transitioning into a commercial role. And that is that once you're in a commercial role, you can't go back to academia, which is not true. Most people don't want to, because they're performing research at a higher or more applied level. Most people don't want to because they're paid more money. They have more respect for the work that they do. They're able to have a better work-life balance. So it's often difficult to transfer back into academia when you live your life in that way. But it's not impossible, and I know lots of people that have done that, thinking that the scientific validity of what you're doing is lower in a commercial role than in an academic setting rather than a commercial setting is also not always the case. An awful lot of people I've placed had that preconception. I've put them in a role and I speak with them over the years, and they tell me exactly how much higher level what they're doing is than what it was before. And often these are sort of seasoned, 3 or 4 postdocs or professors and things like that. So there's quite a few misconceptions, but look, this is always going to be the case, and the antidote to misconception and prejudice is knowledge. So I think, and we all keep learning. So and I think so. I'm going to jump onto the next point in just a second about joining the quantum workforce. But there's a question here about small to medium-sized benefits and how of companies and how they can benefit from integrating quantum, and should they invest in it. And I'm not sure whether you've joined a little bit late, but I would, rather than go back too deeply into this, Ruben, I would look at the talk again. I sort of mentioned this at the start in terms of building your quantum readiness strategy. So please rewatch the talk, and you should see some helpful tips on that. So when it comes to joining the quantum workforce, I think that the mantra is, if you want to get involved in quantum, get involved in quantum. That first step is the thing that gets you in there. And it comes back to what I said about understanding what motivates you and what your aspirations are. And I think for a lot of people who aren't in the quantum ecosystem, understanding the why before understanding the how could be an important stepping stone. Why a quantum technology is important is easier to conceptualize than maybe looking at how. And my epiphany was with the double slit experiment. The moment I realized I wasn't the one that was going to explain why or how it happened, quantum became a lot easier to me, because I could accept there are people far cleverer than me. This showed that this was demonstrably, repeatably true and made stuff happen. So I think focusing on that how is a really interesting piece, and actually this is a tool to interest the younger generation. So if you get people young enough, so for most people we have to unlearn what we think to appreciate quantum. Whereas if you get children young enough that are still, when you talk about things being in two places at the same time and teleportation, all this sort of stuff, this is kind of already happening in their fairy tale, so they don't have to unlearn it. They have a way of encapsulating it that is more natural. So they take out a cycle of it, and with that way we can create quantum natives who will be like digital natives. And if you look at people who grew up in the age of the internet or smartphones, and they use these tools and develop things in different ways. So this is really, really important. And I think one of the next question actually is, what lessons can emerging regions like Mexico and LATAM learn from Europe or the UK's approach to quantum workforce development? And how do policy and education leads in LATAM work with global networks such as Entangled Positions or Quantum Strategy Institute? So, first of all, I would say to the people on the talk today, anyone who wants to reach out and have a conversation on these things to dive deeper, please do so. I'm actually working on a number of issues with various people in and around the less mature quantum ecosystems to try and help them learn from what's happened in countries like the UK that have had their quantum strategy for a long time. But I think some of the things to learn is about is collaborate and forge relationships with people across the world. Understand what the likely benefits of quantum can be for your region, and find those use cases that are specific to your region. Also, the other thing I think is we're at an inflection point where the more mature quantum companies are kind of changing maybe from government as an investor to government as a customer, which can springboard those countries forward. The strategies are getting more sophisticated. So the UK, for example, is already a year into its second 10-year strategy. So obviously there's a pathway to follow, but I think learning from the successes and failures of other nations or regions is important. So look at what people have done well and copy that. Look at what didn't go so well and avoid making those mistakes. And I think that's really, really important to do so. But also I think forging collaborations between nations and faculties in different countries and partnerships, and working with that global audience. And also I think as well, working with other nations maybe that are a similar stage, and you can pull your resources together to make a stronger whole. I think these are some sort of practical tips to be able to do that. And there's no magic wand with this, but those solid foundations can really help. So and I think actually this kind of tags me quite nicely onto my next point, which is that global marketplace. And within quantum there's so many different backgrounds and people and cultures involved with this, and I think it's a case where we really shouldn't underestimate the power of understanding those who are different from you. I've lived in multiple countries. I've actually lived in Central America and South America over the years, and I've spent a lot of time traveling other regions. But one of the things you learn is, when you're not there as a tourist, is getting used to the culture and individuals and learning and really diving into things. You learn so much more quickly, and this is a great opportunity that quantum presents. And I think we shouldn't underestimate the power of that diversity and different thought process. And I think we often focus on the sort of the DEI aspect, which is really important, but also diverse skills, diverse background, diverse intellect. There's a real platform to propel us forward in a way that maybe without embracing that we wouldn't be able to. And actually, with that coming on to DEI or EDI, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on, in quantum is in a really good position to be a lesson for other ecosystems to follow. The quantum landscape is, a lot of the organizations are founded by people with a vision of making the world a better place. So they're naturally quite, they wanted to have a good, happy, healthy, well-adjusted workforce that came from multiple different backgrounds. So it's in a good place. It's never perfect. We're never going to sort of complete that, and there's always work to do. But it's in a really, really nice place. And I think continuing to ensure that bar set high is really important, particularly as quantum becomes more mainstream and more non-quantum or corporate entities come into the ecosystem. We need to be fiercely protective of the sort of quantum for good aspect, and that's something that I think is a shining light. It should be a lesson to others, but we also can't rest on our laurels. And I think as well, there's one of the things that's not spoken about is actually questioning EDI or DEI as you would your subject. There's an awful lot of well-meaning people doing some fantastic work on these topics, but there's a lot of it that because most of this is driven from the political or academic sphere. This has created echo chambers and dogma, so that it's ironic, but there's a lack of diversity in diversity and inclusion initiatives. There's actually a lack of diversity and inclusivity, which in itself can lead to prejudice or exclusion. So we need to be sort of questioning what's right, why it's right, and have input into that, not just accept that these things that you're being taught are always true and always will be true, because most things people think the same way about. But if we're going to be inclusive, we need to hear all views on this, and this is something that everyone has a role or responsibility to play. But to give you some ideas of how quantum is a really inclusive and diverse place. So to set the backdrop, so most of the organizations we work with are based in Europe and North America, as you might expect. Not entirely. We do work with organizations elsewhere. Most of the people we work with come from all over the world. I've placed candidates from every continent on the world except for Antarctica. I've never placed an person from Antarctica. I think penguins would be good at ultra cold topics, but I've not placed anyone from there yet. So, but within that, the backdrop to that is since the start of Entangled Positions, we placed approximately 2/3 of our placement have been women, and approximately 2/3 of our placement have been ethnic minorities. And this speaks to the fact that whilst there is an imbalance, a gender imbalance in quantum, is something that people are aware of. So what we do is we try to flatten the path and empower people to secure the right role by removing any blockages for them. It also shows that the world, so the countries that are furthest ahead in quantum ethnically don't mirror the ethnicity of the world, but actually we work in a global ecosystem, and people from all around the world travel to different jobs. And again, we're able to place people around the world. So this is kind of more reflective of what the global landscape looks like. And I think this is why I say we need to maybe sort of challenge some of the dogma around equality and diversity and inclusion, is that we achieve these numbers. And there's a lot of, I speak with a lot of governments, super governmental, academia, industry, and they often have policies that are actually racist or sexist on their own, because they want to employ certain people of certain groups. And I understand there's a reason for that. We're actually achieving far better numbers, the sort of numbers they would really like to achieve. We're doing that more so than they are, but we do it without that prejudice. We do it in a way where we treat people as individuals. we try and find out what's important to them, what they want to do, and what their skill set is. So we're working with people as individuals, not as arbitrary, not their arbitrary background. We're working with them as individuals. But I think those numbers they reference that Quantum is really striving to do good work when it comes to equality, diversity, and inclusion. But the work's never done. So I think from that perspective, that should give everyone hope that we can all work together. And there's so much that needs to be done. We shouldn't block anyone. So I'm just before the closing remarks, I just want to. There's a really interesting question here as well. So, what was the most interesting background? Excuse me. You have heard of someone having that ended up part of the quantum community. So, I don't know whether this counts or not, but I think so. I've worked with people from all over the world and placed people from lots of different places. I've worked, I know people that have come from very agricultural backgrounds that maybe don't have access to internet. I've worked with people that come from the political spectrum. I've worked with all sorts of people. So I don't know that there's one that is the most interesting or not, because there's so many fascinating people. But I think looking at my journey, so in the UK, I come from the most educationally disadvantaged demographic with the lowest upward social mobility and just about the highest downward social mobility. I had no formal academic or university education, and I was involved in quantum since 2014. So I think that's something that if anyone's feeling imposter syndrome, I would use that example to overcome. And I'm not special, I haven't done anything special. I work in an ecosystem of people that inspire me every day. I wouldn't put myself on that pedestal. So I think from that side, that's interesting. But also I had a fascinating conversation the other day about quantum biology and weak magnetic fields and using lasers to work on molecular sized quantum systems and things like that. So that's probably the thing that took me back maybe 10 years that really stretched my head for the first time in a long time, and looking at sort of interesting developments. But I think with this, this whole rich tapestry of people we have in quantum, I think this is something where we need to use this to be the inspiration for others to join the quantum ecosystem and get involved and flatten the pathway so that you're sort of you're pushing the ladder down for the next generation of people to join. And if you are that next cohort of people, reach out to people in quantum, find out what they did that helped them, what they did they wouldn't that there was a mistake they wouldn't repeat, how you can follow their path, and everyone can play a part in this. So spread the message, make it cool, and why not now? If you want to get involved, why not now? Take that take that step and take your first step. And I think as well, joining these sorts of events is important to do so. Get involved and join in and understand where your piece of the puzzle is. And I think the key thing that we need to remember when creating a quantum workforce, there's two key points. One of them is excellence, which I think you'd expect. The other is overlooked heavily, and it's empathy. We need excellence, we need empathy, and that's the key to creating a high-performing, welcoming workforce that benefits us all. And on that note, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining the talk today. Once again, we got through all of the questions and finished, I think, exactly on time. So thank you for everyone that's joined today.
Thank you, Dr. John. Have a lot of question marks, but the time is not.
Oh,
No, I have questions, Joe, but the time is
oh.
not permit that. We have the next speakers, and thank you again very much, and expect you have here in a future again.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to speak to everyone. And please do, if you're in the call and you want to, please reach out on LinkedIn. It's hopefully we can connect some dots from today. Thank you, Bradley. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.